the younger generation is much more aware of what's happening, and they are much more aggressive in asking for accountability and action-oriented initiatives. And this is, I believe, us as evaluation community really has to rethink how to engage the next generation. My name is Ana Erika Lareza from Philippines, and I am the chair of EvalYouth Global Network. My vision for evaluation is one where genuine inclusion is non-negotiable. The future I see is one where the marginalized and the vulnerable communities are engaged in a sense where the modality has shifted from it being a trend, but more of an established standard and practice within the evaluation. So what that essentially means is that throughout the evaluation process, it is inherently designed to amplify their voices and for it to make a direct and positive impact and change. The most critical trends that are shaping the future of evaluation is one, definitely the changes in technology, especially the AI. That's undeniable even at this point, where a lot of people are very much interested and invested on how AI could be used to make evaluation more efficient and improve processes to be much more inclusive and rigorous and of higher quality and of more use towards decision makers. But with all of those rapid changes means that evaluations will definitely have to be much more adaptive and has to be able to respond to increasingly large demands for data on a real-time basis. And with the technology really creating this heavily interconnected world, there's also a lot of stronger focus with regards to the whole systems thinking, where you cannot think within silos anymore. And you cannot think within one specific field of science or practice. And so that entails a lot. And so that means that there's also a bigger emphasis on evaluators looking into interdisciplinary practices, essentially, and being able to work within that space more comfortably and be able to work with a lot of experts in other fields. So considering this increasing complexity with regards to the global challenges that we face today and all of the interconnectedness that we are experiencing with technological innovations and revolutions, from my perspective, evaluation definitely have to adopt in 3 specific points. The first one is to be able to ensure that there's inclusive stakeholder engagement at all levels, not just with regards to the data collection and data analysis, but even at the very beginning, from the planning of the evaluation process up until the selection of the methodologies, until the very end on how they could use the result of the evaluation. The second point is that evaluation needs to be able to adopt a more holistic lens when addressing global issues. That means integrating cross-cutting thematic areas and being able to move from very narrow and siloed perspectives when conducting evaluation towards understanding of broader and systematic impacts of initiatives, programs, and policies. And lastly, evaluation needs to embrace more innovative methodologies. This includes leveraging advanced data analytics and tools, or more inclusive and participatory stakeholder engagement processes. This is because we need to be more agile and creative in our methods to match the complexity of the problems that we are facing today. The benefits of AI, with all of the discussions that we've been having these days, is definitely undeniable, most especially when it comes to dealing large quantities of data. And it also enables evaluators in a sense that it removes a lot of burden from evaluators and gives them more freedom to pursue other matters in the evaluation process that makes it much more rigorous or perhaps more inclusive and focus on areas that are not commonly addressed within evaluation processes, and that sometimes includes meaningful engagement of other stakeholders, or perhaps adding more gender-responsive lens in evaluation. So that are the opportunities that AI presents within the evaluation process. On the other hand, there are risks with the use of AI, and one of them is perhaps over-reliance or too much focus on AI. From my perspective, AI should just simply be a tool to make evaluation much more easier to do and much more accessible and available for those who need it. But the conversations that we are having these days are too focused on AI that I feel like in mainstream conversations, we forgot that at the same time that AI rose, especially during the COVID-19, we've also made a lot of advancements in using digital technologies to make evaluations more participatory and more inclusive. And that seems to be slowly getting forgotten because a lot of the conversations are focused in AI. For me, as an advocate for youth in evaluation, I think it just requires a little bit of balance in being a bit more critical on how we use this tool in evaluation and how we talk about it. A part of me is a little bit annoyed that there are a lot of technological advances that are being made but is being ignored because there's this big guy in the room. And there are those kinds of technologies that are being overshadowed by our conversations, specifically of AI. I feel like more spaces are needed to be held for such conversations. So, what are the skills and competencies essential for evaluators in the future? And we're talking about something like beyond the basics, right? And when I say basics, not just being able to take qualitative or quantitative data. When I say basic, it also involves being able to do evaluations that are equity-focused, that are gender-responsive, that take human rights into perspective, that is also very inclusive of all relevant stakeholders, young, indigenous, the vulnerable, those are within fragile contexts. Those are the basics. But if we're talking about essentials for the future, definitely it would be, one is the technological fluency. That is a given. We've talked about how AI is almost a must-have. It's a fundamental part of a conversation. So if you cannot adapt these technological changes, then you will definitely be left behind. And if you do not have the capacity to adapt to those, then how can you ensure that your evaluations are also as adaptive and ensures that your stakeholders are not left behind? So technological fluency is definitely essential to be a competent evaluator for the future. The other essential is that given that we're always dealing with complex global issues that's always interconnected, what that means is that it requires evaluators to have skills that allows you to tackle this interconnectivity with other fields and thematic areas. And that also entails learning how to interact with other people from the grassroots level up to the highest level of decision makers or parliamentarians or UN agencies. In such situation, then an evaluator should have really good communication, personal, and networking skills because it involves evaluators needing to talk to a lot of stakeholders, needing to translate their evaluation results and shape it towards the needs of each specific stakeholder. We can no longer write evaluation reports as if we're writing it for evaluators. We have to write evaluations for other stakeholders that we think would benefit from those evaluation reports. So having such soft skills for the future is definitely a must-have at that point. From my perspective as chair of EvalYouth, who's also very well exposed to young and emerging evaluators that are much more younger than me, we're already dealing with two different generations and they're already entering the field. And this is very prevalent in the volunteering space of evaluation community. The younger generation, the next generation, really is much more aware of what's happening, and they are much more aggressive in asking for accountability and action-oriented initiatives. And this is, I believe, us as evaluation community really has to rethink how to engage the next generation, because the current practices that we have right now no longer works, in my perspective, or inefficient. This is not the best way to reach young people anymore. And right now, what we're doing right now is more of like a very exclusive club. So definitely one is acknowledgement of those changes, being aware that that is actually happening, that the next generation is different from me. I'm no longer the next generation. That's for sure. And that requires a lot more fundamental change on how we engage the younger generation. We are put on a pedestal. Essentially, the experts are on a pedestal and they are being harshly watched by the younger generation. So we can, it's more of what I want to say is that we cannot take it easy. Just doing the norm is no longer acceptable. And going beyond is always something that we must do. If you want to engage the next generation, something really has to fundamentally change on how we do it. For example, evaluation conferences. It's not enough that we just sit down and talk. It's not enough, okay, we are aware of things. Awareness is no longer enough. Outputs of evaluation conferences at this point should be an action plan or a network that will work on something that's been decided in this space. More action-oriented and more dynamic.